September maybe, so we submit our budgets in June. In September, we were told we can't quite touch our rollover funds because there was an audit that was going on, not so that they could save them for a sweep by the city. The decisions that we make as a council, I'm in South LA, we make knowing what sort of monies we have available in terms of what we can fund. To suddenly hear now that they're sweeping that money away seems to me, a non-legal mind, I don't get the legality of that.
So on many of the questions we ask, there's going to be a consternation in all of us, a conflict, because there'll be a practical answer and a legal answer, and they may not be married to one another. So take a look at the word in the charter, appropriation. I've been educated recently. Appropriation, I thought, practically might have meant something more serious, like you know, the piggy bank you clutched as a kid and it had all the money in it and you'd never let it go, and there it was. Well, I've come to learn appropriation in government parlance is something less. I'm from a neighborhood council, Greater Wilshire, and we penny pinched every nickel and dime. And we did that on the expectation that someday in the future there would be a neighborhood need or crisis, and we would have saved our money, and we would be able to come in riding on our white horse to rescue whatever the disaster was. Sometimes in life, hindsight being perfect, you feel foolish for your choices that seem so sensible and practical at the time they were made, at the time the decisions were made. We're looking into your question in a strict legal sense. But for today, I will simply just share with you the outline that I have as to how you should look at it and think about it.
But there isn't a firm answer yet then?
I think our office will develop a firm answer, but I nonetheless think, as in most firm legal answers, there will be somebody on the other side, a reasonable mind, who will see it differently.
Jane, I'm curious whether or not you're also going to evaluate, because I take it you haven't reached any opinions yet at all. So this is a question to ask you to consider going forward.
So, no, let me stop you
Sure.
there. I am not assigned to the team that's writing the answer,
Okay.
and I think that probably makes a lot of good sense. Dispassionate lawyers do a better job sometimes than intimates and passionates. But I will have a chance to look at it before it's released.
Okay.
So good idea to throw more questions at us.
I appreciate that, Jane. It's specifically Section 908 of the Charter as it relates to, and it's a very unique provision, but it seems to immunize the neighborhood councils from having their funding cut for political reasons, giving them that extra, in effect, 2 years appropriated balance. It seems to be clear, and part of this CDD, actually, you know, what Larry's thinking about, part of the concern I think that the people are expressing is this degree of independence and the degree of funding. And I'm hoping that the city attorney in their position gives very, very serious consideration both to the intent and the meaning of that, because honestly, what we're talking about here is a pure policy question, and I think Nooch ran as the attorney for the people, and I think it's one thing here what we're talking about when the mayor's political interest may diverge from the broader public interest. I think Nooch has got a responsibility to represent the broader public interest in his opinions, and that's hopefully what we'll get. One other quick point is on the lockbox situation, because originally the mayor came out and he wanted to cut it in half, and I fortunately was able to convince Paul Krikorian, no, he can't do that.
Cut what in half?
Cut the 45 in half. Originally the mayor's budget was to cut.
That was the CAO.
CAO, sorry, okay, I confused the CAO and the mayor. I figured the CAO was the mayor's mouthpiece, but yeah, so the question is, Jane, relative to the council, the city attorney representative on E&N, if he could clarify what the city attorney's position is with regard to the lockbox situation. Once that money goes in, it really shouldn't be, because it's a special fund at that point, and properly advise the council orally and in writing with regard to those issues.
So let's back up. I've been let's see, we have just a little more than 6 months on the job in this new city attorney's administration. But if I had a penny for every time I'd been reminded that the city attorney does not set policy, I'd be a wealthy person today. I chafe when it's said, but it's undeniably true. We're the legal office, not the policy setting office. So if I say that more times than you can tolerate, just send me home on, you know. Okay, so let's talk about the charter issues regarding the money. Again, without prejudging the answers, here are some places to look. And I will tell you that the information you will find is not lovely. It looks like, this is preliminary, but it looks like your appropriations a year in advance was patterned after something relatively similar for the City Ethics Commission. So take a look through the charter and you will see the same language. And then if you talk to the City Ethics Commission and you do a legislative history on where their similar provision came from, quite preliminarily, I want you to look at it and I want you to see if you can find the teeth that may not be there. An awful lot happened between the time that the recommendations were given to the City Council regarding the City Ethics Commission. You know, you come with a package of recommendations, and by the time the legislative process is complete, that package may look very little or very much like what came. But I was there during the city ethics development, and I know that the package of what was presented was considerably scaled back into what was adopted and enacted into law. So do your homework, do your legislative history, be detectives, and Noel, where are you? Come back at us with what you find, but that's, I'm trying to give you a roadmap of where to look.
This is really more of a comment than a question, but about the reorganization. It's my understanding, and Greg Nelson can probably correct me if I'm wrong, is that in the city of Minneapolis, one of the key functions of neighborhood councils is determining how community development block grant money is spent. And so CED might be a logical place. And with respect to annual funding, you know, I think on some sense we've been bought off. The annual funding is about $4 million a year. And my guess is almost none of us on neighborhood councils have weighed in on how the $90 million of community development block grant money is spent in our neighborhoods. And so in some ways, we've been using a little bit of annual funding to be bought off by not having a voice on how much larger sums of money are spent. And I think it's absolutely critical that we keep an amount of funding that's necessary to maintain an office, support staff that we need it, office supplies, websites, telephones, all those things to continue operating. But we might be better off not having a little pot of money to spend so that we fight for a voice on how street furniture funds and community development block grant and how the real money in this city is spent.
Thank you very much, China.
So Jeff, you're right, that was a comment, not a question, but because I can't resist an opportunity to piggyback on your excellent comment. Do you know how much we all wish, or at least I wish, you were in City Hall sitting next to me every day? The more eyes and ears and attentiveness that we can bring to bear on our own government, I'm all for it. I think we'll get a better result.
Hi, Jane. I understand in business law, a contract, course of performance can apply. In other words, from day one, we have expected money every year. We've been not assured, but we just automatically think we're going to get this money because it's always has been there. So my question to you is, wouldn't course of performance prevail in the fact that the city has always